guys, it's Megan from Vigilante Vibes, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite characters of Marvel Comics and the MCU now, of all time. It's none other than Moon Knight. Moon Knight is, I've always liked Moon Knight because so much depth, so much complication, so complex. He, along with his little built-in buddies there, is a great character, a dark character. That's what I'm into. So I want to talk to you guys about him. I want to tell you all about him, about where he comes from, his powers, and hopefully maybe get a few new fans of Moon Knight in the process. So who is Moon Knight? Moon Knight, also known as Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, is one of Marvel Comics' most distinctive heroes. With his streaming series bringing more elements of his comic book lore to life, some of the stranger and more supernatural aspects of his story are starting to gain some interest from followers. Hopefully. While Moon Knight might not be as widely recognized as Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, he has one of Marvel's most bizarre and unsettling backstories as a hero, anti-hero. It's these peculiar traits from his comic history that are helping Moon Knight carve out a unique identity within the ever-growing MCU. So, who is comic book Moon Knight? And in comparison to the MCU version, who is comic book Moon Knight? Answering that question is a bit like putting together one of those 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, which I love, by the way. I'm a huge puzzle nerd. And the key to the chapter and what makes him unique is it's something Moon Knight struggles within himself. You may come across Moon Knight being compared to DC's Batman, both being wealthy businessmen by day, secret vigilantes by night, but that comparison doesn't quite capture the full picture. Moon Knight is one of the comic's most prominent characters dealing with mental illness, a chosen avatar for an ancient Egyptian god, and at times a ruthless killer, which I like. I like a lot. Maybe I'm the problem. Moon Knight also has a rich and complex history with the Avengers, including the recent Age of Khonshu storyline, which paves the way for Moon Knight to potentially become a pretty big villain in the MCU. But it's as time keeps going on, it's are they just pretending he doesn't exist? They did have him for a slight bit in the last season of What If, but it's come on, man, we need more than that. It's probably unlikely Marvel Studios courted star Oscar Isaac, who plays Moon Knight, to become a villain, and the Moon Knight head writer has even suggested a long-term plan for Moon Knight, and it's to join the Avengers, but you really never know, especially with the MCU. That's always changing. We have no idea. Let's start at the beginning. Before his origin was even revealed, Moon Knight made his debut as a villain in Werewolf by Night number 32, which came out in August 1975. He was introduced as an agent of secret organization tasked with capturing Jack Russell, the werewolf in Werewolf by Night. However, Moon Knight ended up helping Russell escape, and soon after, he began his own unconventional crime-fighting journey. Moon Knight initially appeared in backup stories in several existing comics written by Doug Moench, who co-created the character with artist Don Perlin, and illustrated by Bill Sienkiewicz. The team eventually launched an ongoing Moon Knight series, which became an early example of a comic book aimed directly at comic book specialty shops. As Moon Knight, Mark Spector moves to the U.S. and uses his ill-gotten mercenary wealth to create several new identities, including that of a millionaire investor, Stephen Grant, and taxi driver, Jake Lockley. If you watch the MCU series of Moon Knight, you'll know exactly who Stephen Grant is. And Jake, he was shown right at the end in the taxi. So that's him. For years, he operated under these multiple personas, moving from New York to his hometown of Chicago and then to Los Angeles. However, his various identities eventually catch up with him, revealing the first signs of cracks in Mark Spector's psyche and his initial struggles with mental illness. While the specifics of Spector's mental illness remain somewhat ambiguous due to the evolving understanding of psychology and its portrayal in pop culture, it's clear that he suffers from a dissociative identity disorder, or DID. This causes him to have multiple alters, distinct personalities that emerge at different times, alters, each with their own memories, skills, and characteristics. As a result, the identities of Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, Stephen Grant, even Moon Knight are not simply disguises, but are actual facets of his mind and personality. After a dissociative episode that leads to a hospital stay, Moon Knight recovers enough to resume his crime fighting, adopting an array of weapons such as crescent-shaped boomerangs, we've all seen them in his hands, smoke bombs, and more. He also briefly takes on a sidekick, Midnight, who later becomes a villain, as sidekicks sometimes do, while joining the West Coast Avengers, an LA-based branch of the New York-based Avengers formed in the 1980s. During his time with the Avengers, Moon Knight loses his connection to Khonshu and his powers. Khonshu abandons Spector during a battle with his rival, an ancient Egyptian serpent god, Seth, or Set. Spector dies, marking the beginning of a cycle in which he dies and is resurrected multiple times by Khonshu, often with different alters assuming the dominant role in Moon Knight's various lives. In one of the most recent incarnations, Moon Knight has often used the alias Mr. Knight, created by Warren Ellis and artist Michael Lark. The Mr. Knight version debuted in 2012's Secret Avengers number 19, eschewing the more traditional superhero costume for a dapper business suit, a tight fighting mask, and a pair of firearms. The more street-level, pulp-inspired Mr. Knight sometimes trades places with Moon Knight, which we did see in the series when Stephen Grant opts for the more sophisticated look of Moon Knight. Moon Knight series artist Declan Shalvey later tweaked the Mr. Knight look, trading in the two-piece suit for a three-piece and adding additional paraphernalia, including a cane and vehicles. As the Fist of Khonshu, that's his thing, Moon Knight possesses superhuman strength that fluctuates with the phases of the moon, reaching its peak during a full moon. However, Moon Knight has frequently lost his power, and due to Mark Spector's mental illness, it's often been unclear whether his abilities are genuinely granted by Khonshu or if they're merely a delusion masking another source of his strength. In addition to his strength, Moon Knight has performed other supernatural feats, such as hypnotizing others with the voice of Khonshu and communicating with the spirit world, once even guiding Black Panther through the Wakandan realm of the dead. When he's not empowered by Khonshu, who has recently appeared in a more definitive way as Moon Knight's patron deity, likely settling the question of his power source, at least within the comic book context, Spector relies on a vast array of weapons. These include a magic Ankh. If I mispronounce that, I do apologize. But pronouncing things is my downfall. And it senses danger. A crescent-shaped throwing projectiles, smoke bombs, gliders, vehicles, and even an adamantium battlesuit. But it's always white, as Spector says, so the bad guys can't see him coming. But like they can, though. I think that sticks out a lot. But what do I know? I'm not Moon Knight. Recently, Moon Knight received a significant power boost, even briefly wielding the Phoenix Force, a cosmic entity that associated with death and rebirth. You know, if you know Jean Grey, you know who the Phoenix Force is. However, he later relinquished the Phoenix power, which then hosted a tournament to select a new host in Avengers Enter the Phoenix. With his status as a millionaire vigilante, a massive arsenal of weapons, and occasional superpowers, Moon Knight is often compared to Marvel's Batman. Like I said before, like I've heard it quite a bit, and I don't quite see it. But this comparison is understandable on the surface, but due to his unique skill set, he's been called up to join the Avengers a few times, and first as part of the West Coast Division, and later as a covert operative in the Secret Avengers. So it's like, put some respect on his name. He's not Marvel's Batman. I'll never understand that. Like, I kind of do on the very surface level. But once you realize who Moon Knight is, you can see that is incorrect. Moon Knight, who has a rich history filled with a rogues gallery of bizarre and often horror-themed villains, including vampires and werewolves, which could make him a natural fit for a future crossover with Mahershala Ali's Blade. If that ever happens. Which I don't think it will. At least not for a few years, and I don't think it'll be him. But like as of now, it's technically Mahershala Ali's Blade. As previously mentioned, he even had a sidekick named Midnight, who stayed around long enough to have a successor and eventually betray Moon Knight, as they do. The original Midnight was also the son of one of Moon Knight's early foes, Midnight Man. So, you can see the resemblance in the name. Beyond that, Moon Knight offers a unique connection to a different mythology, one vastly different from the Asgardian legends featured in the Thor films. With Khonshu comes a whole world of ancient Egyptian mythology, including the legacy of Set and the Serpent Crown, a powerful artifact tied to the history of Atlantis and Namor. We all know Namor, the submariner, another classic character who was in Wakanda Forever. And I don't know if we're going to see him again either. They're killing me. They are killing me with this. This aspect of the character could signal a dramatically different role for Moon Knight in the MCU than what fans might expect from his introduction as a hero. In the recent Avengers arc, Age of Khonshu, Moon Knight reemerges as a superpowered avatar of Khonshu, leading an invasion of Earth with Khonshu's forces. With enhanced abilities, Moon Knight faces the entire Avengers, trapping the essences of Iron Fist and Doctor Strange and a mystical ink. I don't know what it's called. I'm so sorry. I've never seen this word before. I've seen it, but I've never said it out loud. And eventually claiming the Phoenix Forest with plans to remake the world in Khonshu's image, complete with pyramids, mummies, ancient priests, all that stuff. In the end, Moon Knight, Khonshu, and Set, the rival god who also seeks to conquer Earth, are defeated. Moon Knight releases the Phoenix Force, but not before proving that he's capable of taking the entire Avengers team down, from Captain America to Thor to Captain Marvel, and nearly emerging victorious. It's a scenario that feels perfect for a blockbuster movie battle, but someday. For right now, I don't think the MCU has it in them because we've only seen Moon Knight once. And as much as I really liked the series, I don't think it was a good origin for Moon Knight as a character. So I need them to reevaluate Moon Knight some more before they go, if they ever, which they probably won't, go balls to the wall with this. More recently, Moon Knight has been in conflict with his patron deity, Khonshu, which has left him somewhat disconnected from his usual supernatural powers. He's now running a new initiative called the Midnight Mission, offering his skills and guidance to those in desperate need of his help. So there's actually a newer Moon Knight run by Jed MacKay called Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu, where the Midnight Mission was actually killed. So if you have not checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's a great run. I think it's the 7th one should be coming out this month or next month. Next month, I think. Yeah, because the 6 came out last week. Shoot. Not that it matters because I don't know when I'm posting this video, but whatever. Yeah, Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu. It's a great run by Jed MacKay. I'm really enjoying it. It's showing a lot of vulnerability in Moon Knight, and it shows the strained relationship between him and Khonshu. So I dig it a lot. So yeah, you can check that out if you like. But how can we talk about Moon Knight and not talk about his powers, right? So we did mention that he has the power of hypnosis. He was able to use this ability on Iron Fist. It's using the voice of Khonshu. He can hypnotize his friends and foes. He has only used this incredibly useful ability like a handful of times, so he doesn't flex it very much. Moon Knight can manipulate lunar material. One of Moon Knight's greatest abilities, fans saw him wield Lunakinesis. Oh my god. During the Disney Plus series. Through the use of his magical power, Mark Spector can control aspects of the moon's functions, and he can control objects made of moon material. Moon Knight doesn't really receive the credit he deserves for his mental prowess when compared to the heroes like Black Panther, Reed Richards. However, his deity-imbued powers grant him abilities to help shape his mental acuity and tactical strategy. So, Mark Spector's battle prowess and military strategy are amplified during his connection with Khonshu. This grants Mark the ability to discern how to physically face off against stronger opponents or execute a plan of attack during a brawl. Also, his ability to transition between his alters in a very fluid way allows him to change combat strategies on the fly and throwing his opponents completely off guard. So one that I feel like isn't talked about enough is that he can contact the spirit world, which is crazy, right? Like at one point, Mark travels to the Wakandan ancestral plane to guide Black Panther back from the afterlife. Like, that's huge. Batman can't do that. Like, come on. That's wild. So a big one is that Moon Knight can drain and absorb life energies. Power absorption is one of Moon Knight's more interesting powers and has been used several times to capture abilities from other heroes. In Avengers number 33 by Jason Aaron, Javier Garren, Jason Keith, and Corey Pettit, Moon Knight takes the cosmic and mystical powers of Iron Fist, Ghost Rider, and Doctor Strange. Like, that's freaking huge. Why is that not talked about? It's so underrated. Another one is Moon Knight has resistance to telepathic attacks, which, like, that's pretty big too. I think that one's pretty cool because it's like not many characters have that. The next one, Moon Knight is capable of phase transformation. Phase transformation is one of its more complex powers. The ability isn't always consistent and often changes depending on the story. You know how it is. It's up to the writers. The ability allows Mark to walk through solid objects, transform into his Moon Knight outfit, or amplify his abilities based on lunar cycles. In Conan's Serpent War #1, Moon Knight walked through a glass plane without injury and emerged fully costumed. Mark's Moon's connected power boost even allowed him to defeat and steal power from the 3 mystical powered heroes during a full moon. And one of my favorite ones is Moon Knight can receive prophetic visions separate from his self-hypnotic state. The visions are usually completely supernatural in origin and are often derived directly from Khonshu. The ability was first explored in the pages of Moon Knight Volume 5, Number 6 by Charlie Huston. Khonshu appeared as a slain foe, Bushman, I don't know. And prodded Mark into operating at a peak superhuman level as Moon Knight. This connection also allowed Moon Knight to peer into his enemy's weaknesses. So, as you can see, he's one hell of a character. He's so complex. There's so much depth to him. And if you don't like him, if you don't like Mark, there's Jake and Steven to pick from too. He's a dope character. I want to see so much more Moon Knight. I want to see Moon Knight done properly. I wouldn't mind a movie. We won't get a movie. Let's be 100% there. We will not get a movie. But I would not be against it. They're not going to do a season 2. Let's be honest. They're not doing a season 2 of Moon Knight. I think Brad Winderbaum said that their priorities have shifted. So, Midnight Suns. Why not go that route? I'm down for that. But next time we see Moon Knight, I would like to see him just as dark and gritty as the show, but like with a little bit more so. But other than that, like I said, I didn't really like the show for an origin of Moon Knight, but I did like the show itself for what it was. But the suits looked really good. I really dug that. And Oscar Isaac is so freaking hot, so that worked out well too. But yeah, this was my character breakdown of Moon Knight. If you guys are a fan, let me know in the comics if you are. If you're not, let me know why. And let me know what are your favorite Moon Knight comics. Always down to read more. But yes, he's one of my favorites, and I'd like to see more of his dark and gritty, complex self. So, thanks for watching all of this with me. I hope you have a marvelous day.